Take a look at this photo. Start to notice the story you've crafted about this individual and their situation.
Are there any emotions being evoked? I used to ask myself many questions when encountering a person who is homeless. Why are they homeless? Should I even go near them? It's safest just to look down and walk by as if they aren't there, right? I began to realize that this narrative was less about the person and more about the label we've collectively decided fits this group of people. We should be asking ourselves, who is this person, rather than what is this person? Unhoused individuals are so much more than their housing status. In fact, many of us are about one unpaid medical bill or lost job away from living on the streets alongside those we deem less than human. So, what if through empathy and perspective taking, we could change the way we think about and act towards our unhoused neighbors? Then, we can better understand the depth of the cardboard sign that many of our unhoused neighbors hold. During my freshman year at Hope College, I went on an immersion trip to Austin, Texas. I held many of the common stereotypes and assumptions of a homeless person. I guarded myself and saw this generalized group as dangerous, rather than individuals capable of love and deserving of relationships. That all changed when I met John. John was quiet and fairly reserved, but getting to know him came easy. I joined him near the bonfire, and we began talking about his story, where he's been, where he is now, and where he hopes to be one day. We spent a while talking about his new cat, Shadow. He called him this because he followed John around everywhere he went. He started telling me a couple of his favorite things about Shadow, that he's adventurous and he loves people. But the best thing about Shadow is that no matter how far he wanders away, he always knows that he belongs with John in their tiny home. On the day we left, we spent some time saying our see you laters. While hugging John goodbye, I noticed something. He was wearing short sleeves, revealing two beautiful arm tattoos. One was of the crucified Jesus, as if it were hanging in an elaborate cathedral. The other was a Bible verse written on a banner in calligraphy spanning the width of his frail arm. I shared with excitement how much I loved his tattoos. I recently, and rebelliously, had gotten a tattoo myself, so I began showing him mine. He responded with a gentle thank you, saying, "It was the first thing I did when I was on the street." I was shocked by the immense talent required to capture such beautiful images simply with ink and a needle. He asked me if it hurt to get my tattoo, to which I responded, "I don't tolerate pain too well, so I'm not the best person to ask. What about you?" John looked at me with kind eyes and said, "Nah, I was smoking weed when I did mine. I don't do the hard drugs, though. Just smoke some weed from time to time." We continued to share stories and laughs. I hugged him goodbye, and we went our separate ways. John challenged everything I previously knew about homelessness. Hearing pieces of his story and the few interactions I shared with him was the beginning of a paradigm shift in how I understood homelessness. I knew his love for Shadow. I knew his desire for a community. I began to see our common humanity in the laughs and stories we shared. I understood what it meant to see him, a previously homeless man who smoked some weed here and there, but not the hard stuff, as a neighbor, a friend. Seeing unhoused individuals as fully themselves is what's missing from the issue of homelessness. Sociologist and nonprofit CEO Kevin Adler states that we must embrace our unhoused neighbors as people to be loved, not problems to be solved. We can begin to humanize homelessness by approaching our unhoused neighbors with empathy and compassion rather than as a burden or inconvenience. This photo offers us nothing but information, yet we often find ourselves assigning stories and traits to the person behind the sign. To justify our walking by, it's not uncommon for us to paint a picture of this person as a threat to our safety. We say that giving them money feeds into their laziness, offering them means to buy more drugs, perpetuating the issue. In reality, assuming the worst in an unhoused neighbor is what is perpetuating the issue, further stigmatizing it. No one wakes up in the morning and decides that this is the day they will live on the street, unable to find food to fill their stomachs or a public restroom to use. In social psychology, the attribution theory takes two routes in clarifying how a person justifies or does not justify a person's actions or experiences. Dispositional or situational attribution. Adhering to common stereotypes is taking a dispositional approach, meaning the core factor of justification relies on internal traits. These are traits like laziness, lack of work ethic, unintelligence, or other traits that make you question a person's capability or deservingness of being homeless. An alternative route is situational attribution, which focuses on the external traits of a person. This can happen to anybody at any time in their lives. Questions one may ask include, how affordable is the housing market? Or are there any biases present? In other words, what barriers are in place that may prevent a person from gaining housing? Dispositional attribution lays the foundation for societal stereotypes, pushing people further from access to healthy, meaningful relationships. When a person's worthiness of human rights and necessities are defined by stereotypes, groups become marginalized, as we see in our unhoused neighbors. Not only do these stereotypes restrict people from gaining needed resources, but they also are a barrier that separates them from relationships. The separation is caused by a lack of empathy, which is crucial when thinking about homelessness. Brené Brown, best-selling author and doctor of psychology, defines empathy as an emotional skill set that allows us to understand what a person is experiencing and to relate back that understanding to that person. Meaning, we don't have to have the same experiences as another person to practice empathy. By using active listening, we can demonstrate that we understand what a person is experiencing even when we don't know how to fix it. I want to tag a specific branch of empathy called perspective taking. Teresa Wiseman, doctor of psychology, defines this as recognizing someone's perspective as truth. Saying, I believe you, is one of the most powerful things we can offer a person experiencing trauma. Now, you may be asking, why don't we just put everyone experiencing homelessness in a house? They'll be off the streets and the problem will be solved, right? This seems like the logical thing to do, but is it really? In the UK in 2021, the halfway housing study was conducted. Participants were given a house, but no job. Accountability, but no needed resources or integration back into society, leading to conditions like depression. This ultimately landed them back on the street, developing what's known as relational poverty, being deprived of one's human right and need for relationships. Putting all physical needs aside, many unhoused neighbors don't have access to healthy, meaningful relationships. This is where Community First Village comes in, the place where I met John. Community First Village is a housing-first model that offers a house as well as relationships to people who are formerly chronically homeless, defined by 1 or more years of people living on the streets or somewhere else inhabitable. It's really quite spectacular. By being given a house and a community, residents are able to flourish, a key component in understanding housing. When down in Austin, I met another neighbor named Blair. Blair spent 3.5 years on the street, unable to find housing and unsure of what his life looked like. Blair is the perfect example of why this model works so well. By being given a house and a community, Blair is able to care for his neighbors. Blair is known as the mayor by many people in the community, and if you ask him why, it's because he cares for his neighbors. Blair keeps a flip phone on him at all times, so he's available to anybody at any given moment. However, most of these calls are often coming from someone simply yearning for a friend, looking for a hello. Okay, let's take a step back and relate this to a more relatable idea. Let's say you come down with a common cold. Your throat is sore. Your body's aching. You have a fever. Who are you going to call? Do you have someone like Blair to call? I know I have people in my life who I can call who would meet my needs when I am too sick to meet them myself. A simple call is the difference between you and many people who find themselves homeless. This is an immense privilege, a privilege that most of my unhoused neighbors don't have. So, where do you fit into this picture? You may, like most people, just Avoid eye contact because you're scared that you're going to be asked for money or food. The truth is, you might be. Don't get me wrong, just judgment is always required when engaging with someone unfamiliar. But it's not about what the person asks for, but rather if you choose to see them as a fellow human. If you don't have money or you don't want to give money, kindly say that. Your honesty matters more than anything you will physically give a person, because being treated like a human means being honest. Avoiding a person by ignoring their suffering is shutting off a piece of your humanity. This may sound jarring, but empathy is what we're made for, the means by which we're connected. The homeless crisis is so much more than houses. It's the depth of human need for empathy, relationships, and the mere recognition of being human. I'm going to put up this photo one last time. Let's say you're walking out of the theater tonight and you see someone holding the sign. What will your response be? This is a person who has a name, who is or once was a son or daughter, a brother or sister, possibly a father or mother. They have loved and lost, cared and been cared for, just as you and I have, just as humans deserve. What is their name? Thank you.